everyone! Today we're going to be learning about graphing linear inequalities, so make sure to have your notes out. And the goal of today is to be able to graph linear inequalities in two variables. So let's get started here with an example. I have 4 examples for us today, and so if you would like to take notes, a great idea would be to get out a sheet of paper and fold it into quarters so that you have 4 equal sections on your paper. And then you can write one example in each section. So this first example, we've got y is less than 2x minus 1. And what I'd first like us to note about this is that this has 2 variables. So this is an inequality in 2 variables. What are the variables? They are x and y. Okay, and another thing to note is that this inequality is already in slope-intercept form. So think in your brain, what is slope-intercept form? Oh yes, it's y equals mx plus b. So this is in that form, which means that we can identify the y-intercept and the slope. So what is the y-intercept? Think of what number you think it might be. The answer is it's -1. And I'm going to go ahead and put a point at that tick mark on the y-axis. And now I'm ready to identify the slope, which is that other number in the slope-intercept form. So the slope is 2. Which means it's really 2 over 1 for my rise over 1, so I should be going up 2 and right 1. So I'm ready to graph this line here, but we need to remember this is an inequality, not a line. And so what I'd like you to write down in your notes is how to determine whether or not to use a dotted or a solid line. Okay, so if we're dealing with values that are not included, such as a less than or a greater than situation, then we're using a dotted line. If our y value should be included with a less than or equal to or a greater than or equal to sign, then we're using a solid line. And this relates to what you've been learning about inequalities in one variable because we had open and closed circles. So this is very similar. For open circle, we're using a dotted line. Solid line would be more like a closed circle. Okay, so we have a less than symbol, which means we need to use a dotted line. And then the other thing I want you to take a moment to write down, and if you need to pause the recording to write this information down, that would be great, is that we're shading for this inequality, just like when you had inequalities in one variable. Okay, so if we're less than or equal to, we're shading below the line. It's not to the left anymore because we're dealing with 2 dimensions here, and so you need to be thinking above the line or below the line. If you're greater than or equal to, you're going to shade above the line. Okay, so we have a less than, so I'm going to go ahead and shade below the line. And that's it. We've graphed an inequality in 2 variables. Okay, so now that we've done that first example, I want you to participate with me on this second example. I want you to make sure you write this inequality down and draw its graph so that you get practice with that. And start by answering this question for yourself. What is the y-intercept? So look at the inequality and try to figure out what number it is. It should be 2. Okay, and then I'm going to go ahead and put that point down so I don't forget it. And then my slope is -1/3, which is down 1, right 3. That's how we do our rise over run. So down 1, right 3, and we've got some points there. And then you stop yourself and you say, am I supposed to do dotted, solid? And you look at the inequality symbol and it's greater than, which means we're going to use a dotted line because we're not including the y. It's y is greater than, not y is greater than or equal to. So dotted line. And lastly, shading above or below. And we should be shading above the line. So point on your screen where you think I'm going to shade. We should be shading above the line. Okay, that's it. That's graphing an inequality in 2 variables. So we're ready for example 3. Here we go. You know the drill. We're going to write down the inequality, and then we're going to answer all these questions. So I want you to take a moment and pause the recording here and answer these questions for yourself and figure out how you would graph this. And then you're going to be able to check your answer in just a minute. All right, hopefully you've worked on it and paused the recording at this point because I'm going to go ahead and put up all these answers. We've got a greater than or equal to sign, which means that once we put on our y-intercept of -3 and our slope of 2 over 5, we're going to have a solid line. Shading above because it's greater than. Okay, so make sure you had the solid line correct and the shading correct. All right, last example. We're dealing with a less than or equal to sign. So I'd like you to pause the recording one last time and answer these questions and actually graph the inequality. Make sure that your shading and your line is correct and that your slope is correct, your y-intercept is correct. All right, here come the answers. Again, we're dealing with less than or equal to, so you should have a solid line. Y-intercept was 0. That might have been tricky for some of us. But the slope is 4 over 1. So this is a pretty steep line. We're dealing with a solid line because of the equals part of the less than or equal to. And then we're shading below the line. All right. So hopefully you feel like you've accomplished something after having done these 4 examples. I think you're pretty awesome and that you're doing a great job in our class. And so go ahead and go and take the quiz that I sent to you with the game code. And please do make sure to use your first and last name. If you're only using your first name, I still don't know that it's you because there might be someone else in our class with the same first name as you. So make sure that you do that so that you get your credit for this session. And thanks again for watching.